Hip hop, the rhythm, the heart, the streets, the soul. Hip hop in this culture is no longer an outcast or a public enemy. Nah, not today. Hip hop is the most influential music genre of its time. But oftentimes the people who get the most credit and spotlight, and rightfully so, are the artists. But not today. Today we're gonna cover the real heroes of hip hop, the men and women behind the scenes pushing the culture forward and covering the music that we all love. The DJs, the journalists, the podcasters, the hip hop media. I will break down the history of the hip hop media and all its major players. Today on Culture Breakdown. What's up, guys? I'm Jamal Nolan, back with another episode of Culture Breakdown, the new and improved Culture Breakdown. Everything has been upgraded. Production has gone to another level. And it's time to get busy and start bringing y'all the content I really want to bring you and show you what this channel can really become. I'm serious about this. I'm trying to build a real platform here. So thank you to you guys for all the love, the support, the likes, the comments, the shares, because literally none of this is possible without you being here. So if you're new to this channel, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and bell notification, because I bring you the why behind the success of the most influential black people in our culture every single Tuesday. I'm really trying to get this video to blow up, so I want you guys to like it, subscribe, and share this video heavy to all the people on your social media platforms. My Twitter account is suspended still. Just help a brother out in promoting this video. I want it to blow up for all the people that I cover in this video because they deserve it. Now, on to the show.
Water, earth, fire, air.
These are the 4 elements that make up the planet, but there are also 4 elements that make up hip hop.
Breaking, MCing, graffiti art, DJing.
So obviously for this video, we're gonna examine the 4 elements of hip hop media: radio, magazines, television, and the media era. The first element we'll discuss is the importance that radio played in hip hop, from the obvious music distribution to the classic interviews and the iconic personalities to grace the mic. The second element, magazines, from the unforgettable covers and the memorable articles, the journalists and editor-in-chiefs that somehow made hip-hop artists superheroes but real, unattainable but also aspirational. In element 3, television is where we got to see all the creativity, lifestyles, performances, interviews, the glitz and glamour. Television really showed us what hip-hop was all about. And last but certainly not least, element 4, the media era. We'll go into all the bloggers, the YouTubers, podcasters, and more. This group has really made a major impact on the genre, and we'll get into exactly how. These are the 4 elements that I will cover in today's show, and the major people that made waves and significant impacts. Some people will show up in multiple elements, and I will miss some people. It's no disrespect, I'm only human, and this video can only be so long. But I promise to cover my bases and make sure this video is fire. Now, without further ado, element number 1, radio. Radio has always played a major role in hip hop, from breaking new music and artists, having legendary interviews for decades, sparking beefs, squashing beefs, and of course having a plethora of personalities. So let's take a look at a brief history of hip hop on the radio, some of its major contributors, and some of the iconic moments that we'll never forget.
Every Saturday, rap attack Mr. Magic Molly Mall.
Back in 1981, Mr. Magic launched a rap attack on WHBI in New York City. Following year in 1982, it moved to WBLS, becoming hip hop's first commercial show. Mr. Magic and Marley Marl were the biggest names of the time, and the biggest names in hip hop were Run DMC, followed by the Juice Crew, who was founded by Mr. Magic. He had big name stars like Roxanne Shante, Big Daddy Kane, MC Shan, and rest in peace to the recently transitioned Biz Markie. With these artists, Mr. Magic was at the top of the game. But like the competitive sport that hip hop is, someone's always gunning for the top spot. Insert DJ Red Alert. In the mid-80s, DJs were all over the radio, but the biggest rival was between DJ Red Alert and Mr. Magic. And here's how things really got interesting. There was a young artist and DJ from the Bronx named KRS-One and DJ Scott LaRock, and they recruited another young DJ by the name of, peep this, DJ D Nice. Yes, that DJ D Nice that emerged during the pandemic as the biggest star in the times. Like, he totally reinvented himself and reinserted himself back into the conversation, but that's an amazing story for another day. They formed the group Boogie Down Productions, BDP. So one day, two young kids, KRS-One and Scott LaRock, barge into a Mr. Magic recording section. And they say, yo, I'm KRS-One, and I'm DJ Scott LaRock. We wanna play you our demo. They played the demo for Mr. Magic, and Mr. Magic said, yo, get that out of here, yo. That junk is whack, son. He said, you wanna hear real MCs?
Listen to MC Shan, Roxanne Shante.
And he kicked them out the studio. KRS-One left and was like,
I'm not
whack. MC Shan is
whack.
And here we go. Soon after their interaction, MC Shan dropped The Bridge, which sparked a little bit of controversy over the birthplace of hip hop.
You love to hear the story again and again of how it all got started way back when.
In the beginning of the song, you hear Marley say, oh, they want to tell you a story about where they come from. That's the key words, where they come from, the bridge.
KRS-One, seeing his opportunity to prove that he wasn't a whack MC, made a response track to MC Shan The Bridge called South Bronx.
So you think that hip-hop had its start out in Queensbridge? If you pop that junk up in the Bronx, you might not live.
They took this record straight to Mr. Magic's rival, DJ Red Alert. And guess what Red Alert did? Press play, baby.
We gave one to Red Alert.
DJ Red Alert, one of New York's premier club and radio DJs, played parties at New York's Latin Quarters.
Boom, our song comes on.
This was a big statement for KRS-One. A little to unknown artist just trying to make a name for himself going at MC Shan. And MC Shan was the man at that time, like a big deal in New York and in hip hop in general. Him dropping that track set everything on fire. Then the Juice Crew, of course, had to respond with Kill That Noise.
Kill that noise. Kill that noise.
KRS-One came back with another banger. The Bridge Is Over.
That noise came out, and I put out The Bridge Is Over because it's all I had. These are rhymes that I was saying. So I ran back in the studio the next week and made this record, The Bridge Is Over.
And of course, this all played out on the radio. Between Mr. Magic and DJ Red Alert, they had the stations booming, ratings skyrocketing for both channels. And whoever you was rocking with, whoever you thought had the better song, the better version, that was the radio station you were tuned into the most. This beef and those big artists solidified Mr. Magic and DJ Red Alert as the DJs of the 80s because they was associated with so many big name artists. Mr. Magic had Big Daddy Kane, Biz Markie, Roxanne Shante, Kool G Rap, MC Shan, just to name a few. And DJ Red Alert had KRS-One, Scott LaRock, DJ D Nice, Tribe Called Quest, Queen Latifah, Black Sheep. These are artists that they either helped break, they helped produce, or they was just around all the time. And these artists ran hip hop in the 80s, which effectively helped DJ Red Alert and Mr. Magic run the radio for the 80s. So you can just see how impactful these brothers were early in hip hop. And they laid the foundation for what hip hop radio would look like for years. From breaking big records, diss songs, interviews, mixes. I mean, look at the influence. Also in the 80s, you had DJ Chuck Chillout, who also did his thing to represent as well. In the 90s, Sway was the first to host a hip hop show on a pop station. In 1990, Sway's impact in music is crazy. From his iconic look and style to all the legendary things that he's done, and he also appears in like 3 of the 4 elements. So we'll get to Sway's impact later. Around 1993, Hot 97 was a struggling and desperate radio station, and they had to do anything to save the station. So they took a huge risk by trying to transition into a full-time hip-hop radio station. At this time, they already had a young intern who had been in the building for several years at this point, Angie Martinez. They bring in a hot New York City DJ, Funkmaster Flex. They had Angie on the boards, and at that point, that show and the station started to skyrocket. Yo, I just want to break this down for a second. In the early 90s, Hot 97 had Wendy Williams, Funkmaster Flex, and Angie Martinez. Wendy Williams for the afternoon drive, Funkmaster Flex for the late nights, and Angie Martinez after him. That's crazy. Now, Flex will later become known for his rant, but back in that time, Flex was strictly DJing, and he was absolutely killing it on the radio. They had to literally force Flex to talk. Can you believe that? When Angie finally worked her way to the 6 to 10 p.m. slot, she took off. She created the Battle of the Beats, where they would play one new song versus another new song and have the fans vote for it. That sounds vaguely familiar. But one of the first times that this really got interesting was when Jay-Z had his song In My Lifetime. He was a little known artist. They had In My Lifetime going against some other song, and it blew up. It was people calling the radio station non-stop, asking for that Jay-Z, voting for that Jay-Z. And Angie had no idea what was going on. But the truth behind the matter is, Dame Dash and Jay-Z just set the whole thing up and just was calling, had interns and all that stuff calling. Great story, great marketing ploy from Dame and Jay-Z. Angie starts to build a relationship with Jay-Z. She starts having interviews flood in. She even got an interview, a legendary interview with Tupac. So Angie Martinez really started making her statement in the mid to late 90s. And I promise you, we cannot overstate the importance and influence of Angie Martinez on the radio. Like, that woman is an absolute legend, and she is gold, man. Like, I cherish the things that she does and the impact that she's made. Now, on the West Coast, Big Boy is starting to make a name for himself in the LA area, but he had not got that national recognition until he hit the Vibe TV show in 1998. It's safe to say that Hot 97 with Funk Flex and Angie Martinez dominated the 90s, and they all but stamped their legendary status. And to top it off, they started the biggest hip-hop festival in 1994, Summer Jam, which has gone on to have some of the best moments of hip-hop performances. In the early 2000s, Power 105 begins to transition their way into the hip-hop space, so they first bring in Ed Lover and Moni Love. Now, I'll talk about Ed Lover a little bit later on in the TV element, but come on, son. They also bring in Star and Buck Wild from Hot 97. They're now rivals. And Star and Buck Wild might have been the very first black hip-hop shock jocks. And I'm talking about they were going crazy, creating all type of controversy. Either you loved them or you hated them. They didn't care. They was popping, and they were like the #1 show for Power 105. Star and Buck Wild, you cannot deny their legendary status, but they also laid the foundation and blueprint for other shock jock type people to come along, and they influenced people like Charlamagne Tha early in his career. That type of content from Star and Buck Wild early on, Charlamagne, was so wildly entertaining, but would never stand for today's time. So thank God they've all transitioned. Breakfast Club started in 2010. Ebro in the Morning started in 2012. The Breakfast Club had...
Howdy, it's DJ Envy Angela Yee, Charlamagne Tha. We are the Breakfast Club.
Ebro in the Morning has Ebro, Peter Rosenberg, and Laura Stiles. Now, I'm not pitting these two stations against each other, but they were the last really big radio stations, especially to birth big stars. We still have Angie, Funk Flex, Sway, and Big Boy, but all the heat comes from these two stations. Ebro has been over at Hot 97 since 2003, and Hot 97's impact and the talent that they have birthed is undeniable. People like Scotty Beam, Marissa, Miss Jones, Cypher Sounds, and that's just to name a few. Hot 97 has had such a tremendous impact on hip-hop, and they are truly a staple in our community. Now, the Breakfast Club, on the other hand, the interviews and the impact they've made are undeniable. Charlamagne has made such a great transition from being one of the most influential people in media. And congratulations, Charlamagne, on your new show on Comedy Central, God's Honest Truth. I watched it. It is phenomenal. Great job. Angela Yee is an incredible, talented lady, and she has done a spectacular job of evolving and growing herself and her platforms on and off of the Breakfast Club. It's incredible to watch the entrepreneur that she's become. DJ Envy is one of the hottest DJs in the game, especially when it comes to actually being on the radio. DJ Envy has solidified his spot as one of the legendary DJs, and Breakfast Club was recently inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame. So that speaks for itself.
Fan of yours for a while. I think you're the last great radio host.
But truly, I agree with Rogan here. And I'm gonna explain to you guys why I think that these few individuals are the last big names that we're gonna get from radio. I'll get into that later. Radio has meant so much to hip hop. The artists, and most importantly, the fans, have gotten so much great music, insightful interviews, and unforgettable moments. Wow, that was a fun and exciting journey through radio. If I had a sponsor, this is exactly where they would go, because boy, we need a commercial break after all of that. But moving right along to element number 2, magazines. Let's cover the brief history of hip-hop magazines and all the major players. The Hip Hop Connection started in 1988, becoming the first hip-hop magazine, and it started over in UK 6 months before The Source started here in America, which is the longest running hip-hop magazine in this country. All of these iconic magazines are known for great covers and amazing articles, and a few of them still exist today as online platforms. Now let's go through a couple of these and some of the covers. Complex Magazine, Ego Trip, The Fader, King Magazine, boy I love King, Wrap Up, Respect Magazine, The Source, Vibe, Word Up, and XXL. So obviously these magazine covers speak for themselves, but let's go through some of the major people who made their names from this magazine era. Starting with Miss Info, who has worked with the Vibe magazine, Rolling Stone, The Source. She was the managing editor of XXL, and she was also on air for Hot 97 as well. She currently has a show on VH1 and Complex. Next, we have my man Sasha Jenkins, who co-founded Ego Trip magazine with Elliott Wilson. Then that moved on to the TV show as well. We're gonna get to that in a bit. Now, he is the creative director for Mass Appeal magazine. He also wrote for Boondocks and 50 Cent's documentary, The Origin of Me. Now we have the late, and again, rest in peace, man. This is a hard one for me. Jazz Waters wrote for Vibe Vixen, and she was also became a writer for This Is Us and The Breaks. Again, rest in peace, Jazz Waters, man. And then we have, of course, the king and queen of this hip-hop media thing, man. Probably like one of my biggest influences for even making this video, Elliott Wilson and his wife Danielle. Elliott pops up in other elements later on, so I'm really gonna give him his flowers then.
You achieved basically what your dream job. You're the music editor of The Source.
At 25.
Yes.
What do I do next?
Well, you maintained that position for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, and then you abruptly quit to no new job. What happened?
From 1999 to 2008, Elliott was the editor-in-chief at XXL magazine. This is also where he would meet a freelance writer, B-Dot, which would later become his co-host for the Rap Radar podcast. Elliott went on to co-found Ego Trip. He also wrote for The Source magazine, GQ, Vibe, Rolling Stone. He was the editor-in-chief for the Respect magazine, Now his lovely wife Danielle was the editor-in-chief for Vibe magazine. She was the first African-American and first female to be editor-in-chief at Vibe. That's crazy. So you can already see how Danielle and Elliott has made such a major impact early in the magazine era, and they're still doing it today. The magazine era seems short because of the digital media era coming into place, but they left us with so many unforgettable magazine covers and articles. Element number 3, television. When I think of hip hop on TV, I think about Versus. No, not Swiss and Tim, man. I'm talking about the ultimate showdown between BET and MTV. Even though MTV burst onto the scenes first with Yo MTV Raps, I think BET had the better overall program. But it's definitely up for debate. But I think with both networks, we had the best possible content. Now, we are gonna do a versus here between MTV and BET, obviously. But before I get into a show for show breakdown, I first wanna run through a brief history of hip hop on TV.
Show Dog's house, they was watching Yo MTV Raps.
Yo MTV Raps started in the US in 1988 with Fab Five Freddy, and then it moved on to Ed Lover and Dr. Dre and T Money. With interviews, wild fun, and music videos, these guys really shared the hip hop culture on TV. I'm telling you, this is where Ed Lover really started to make a name for himself, and my man stamped his legendary moments right then on Yo MTV Raps, and that was going to pay dividends for him for decades. I love Ed Lover, and he put on for the culture with Yo MTV Raps early. Yo MTV Raps' first competition was Video Music Box with host Ralph McDaniels and Lionel Martin. This show was dope, man. They would play music videos, and in between they would hit the streets of New York, interviewing regular people, asking them their favorite songs, asking them about their favorite artists. Yo, can you imagine that back in the 80s, just walking around the streets and being interviewed for a TV show? Like, that was super lit, bro. Just imagine how popular that TV show was in New York City. Then Rap City came along, inserted their name into the game, and now I think it's the perfect time for us to jump into the verses between MTV and BET. First up, we have Yo MTV Raps, which I already discussed, versus Rap City when they had Big Tigger and the freestyles in the basement. Ooh. Boy, I'm not gonna give y'all my opinion on any of these. You kind of choose for yourself, but this was fire. Rap City in the basement was fire. Then we had MTV Jams versus 106 in Park. They had AJ and Free as the host. They had the top 10 countdown, interviews, and my absolute favorite, Freestyle Friday. Then we had Making the Video on MTV, which was MTV's version of behind the scenes, showing people how music videos were made. They had some of the biggest and dopest artists on there, versus BET's Access Granted, which was the exact same show, just different type of artists, different kind of format, but pick and choose which one you like the best. Then MTV had a show called Sucker Free and / Direct Effect. Sucker Free actually had the host DJ Envy. Direct Effect had DJ Clue and Lala as their host. This was kind of MTV's TRL for hip hop type of deal. BET had BET Styles, which had Big Tigger and Melissa Ford as their host. This was kind of BET's news station type deal as well. Then we had Diddy's Making the Band. Oh, bruh. Making the Band was such a dope reality TV show. To me, it's like hands down the best ever. Like, Making the Band was like the perfect combination of all type of drama. You got music, you got fights, you had Diddy, you got memes. Well, back then, sketch comedies about it. Like, Making the Band was absolutely fire, and I'll put Making the Band up against College Hill. College Hill got a little wild if you was really watching it as a reality programmer for BET back then. MTV had Run's House, which was Run from Run DMC, him and his family, the hip hop family. First time we really got to see something like that on television, and I'm gonna put that up against Baldwin Hill because I think a lot of those kids had basketball, NFL, and musicians as parents. So throw that in there. MTV had T.I.'s Road to Redemption, and they didn't really have a fair comparison on BET's side, so I put it up against BET's Uncut. And the reason why I did that, because one, I absolutely love BET Uncut. This is when BET came on late nights and we got to see like X-rated videos. But I put that up against T.I.'s Redemption because T.I., along with Nelly, was the reason why BET Uncut was canceled. Then MTV had Pimp My Ride, which was hosted by Exhibit, like straight hip-hop influenced television show. And I'm gonna put that up against BET's Top 100 Countdown. Do y'all remember that? It used to come on at the end of the year and it would be on all Saturday long. Like they would start from video number 100 all the way down to number 1, and every single year I would miss number 1. It was such a long countdown, but the show was super dope. Then we got the unmatched Wildin' Out, hosted by Nick Cannon and a slew of other hip-hop artists. And Wildin' Out would go against BET's only really game show, Take the Cake, which was again with Big Tigger and Takara. Then we got the legendary MTV Cribs, bro. MTV Cribs was so dope. And this is where artists would bring you into their home, show you around how nice and fancy their house was. Like, we got some crazy moments from that. Versus BET's How I'm Living, which was the exact same premise, just different platforms, same show. Then MTV had the MTV News, which was hosted by Sway, and Sway was covering so many different things. And that's what I'm talking about, man. Sway popped up in so many of these different elements. He was such a staple for us from the 90s all the way to today. And that type of longevity has got to be commended. And we'll put that up against BET's Beef documentary series, where they talked about like different beefs in hip hop. 50 Cent versus Ja Rule, T.I. versus Little Flip. Like, they covered so many different beefs. And what I liked about this so much is they was able to get all of these artists on here and the involved parties to come on and talk about it. And then last but not least, we have the award shows versus the award shows. Got the Video Music Awards versus the BET Awards and the BET Hip Hop Awards, which always has great performances and the Cypher. Like, I was absolutely in love with both of those award shows. But you guys kind of make your own list and figure out who you think won this versus, MTV or BET. Now here's a bunch of other shows that kind of off the top of my head. VH1 was really known for reality TV, and they put up a lot of good hip hop reality TV type shows. We had Ego Trip, the white rapper show. Like, that show, again, Sasha Jenkins, Elliott Wilson helped create that show. Here go Elliott putting his hand in another freaking element. Like, that man is iconic, bro. But Elliott Wilson, that white rapper show was brilliant, and I loved it. Then we had stuff like Flavor in Love, Ice-T's Rap School, I Wanna Work for Diddy, Love of Ray J, T.I.'s Family Hustle. The TV element has so many memories, moments, and movements that will never be forgotten. And of course, they had so many legendary hosts and people that are still making impacts to this day. And if they aren't, we haven't forgotten them. Right now would be a perfect time to leave a comment down below telling me who you thought was like the best personalities back then, and then also who you think was the better network, MTV, BET, heck, even VH1. I just had so much fun putting this together and watching every one of those shows. Like, man, I really do miss those TV days when TV was like thriving. We got so much good programming, but we're in a new and a better era, if you ask my opinion. And now last, but certainly not least, probably the biggest, most influential element of them all, the media era. In this section, I want to speak about the most impactful figures from all the different areas. The podcasters, bloggers, YouTubers, social media platforms, all of them. And just how these people and the mediums that they chose have changed hip hop forever. Let's start off with podcasting. If you're speaking about podcasting, you're talking about podcasting in the hip hop genre, you have to, and I mean have to, speak about the trailblazing that the legendary, late, great Comeback Jack did.
Get ready for comeback.
no escaping.
Get ready for combat. Get ready for combat.
No escaping.
Combat Jack had one of the better podcasts, and he was early. He was early to the podcasting game, and a lot of the podcasters that we have now pay homage and respect to Combat Jack for all that he did in the podcasting space. The Combat Jack podcast was great, but one of my favorite things is if you go listen to his segment on Chris Lighty, the Mogul podcast that he did with Gimlet Media, like that was such a really great, passionate storytelling from a legend. Next up, we have the Rap Radar podcast with Elliott Wilson and B-Dot. Here is where I'm giving Elliott and B-Dot all of their flowers. B-Dot now has a show on Complex, the Complex Bracket. He has his own thing on Instagram with the Artifacts. Great names, by the way. B-Dot has been doing his thing in this media era for quite some time, and my man is an absolute staple in hip-hop. Every time B-Dot puts out a list, it creates all kind of uproar, and what that means to me is your voice matters. So kudos to B-Dot for all that he's doing in hip-hop. Now, Elliott Wilson, I've mentioned in multiple elements at this point. Elliott's the man, bro. Like, he really is the man. He's somebody that I look up to, somebody I admire drastically. And Elliott's hip-hop impact is unmatched, bro. He's literally behind the scenes making moves all the time that people don't even know about. Like, people aren't even aware of some of the things that Elliott has put his hands on and has made an impact on. And I love what he's doing, and I appreciate how he's impacted people on social media and his presence with Tidal. But the Rap Radar podcast before the pandemic was dominating things. They was putting out big interviews, and they'll be back, and they're gonna continue to kill it with their Rap Radar podcast, where they interview some of hip-hop's greatest artists, and they get into some insightful conversations, man. Next up, man, we got Nori over there at Drink Champs, man. Salute to that brother. Like, Nori platform is super dope. He has all of these great platforms, and this year in 2021, Nori probably has the most amount of big-time interviews and moments in hip-hop. So salute to Nori for being super consistent. Like, Nori is doing it different over there with Drink Champs and his interview style and format, but he gets a lot out of these artists, and he always has like old-time hip-hop type artists on his platform, and he always gets some crazy stories from them. So salute to Nori. Like, that's a testament to your interview style, I mean, and alcohol. But Nori does his thing, man. Now, next up, we have Gilly and Wallow. Like, what Gilly and Wallow are doing, like, they're still relatively new to the podcasting game, been around a couple years. But what Gilly and Wallow has done in 2021 with their podcast, I mean, they've taken things to the next level with $1 million worth of game. Salute to Gilly and Wallow. I love what they're doing over there. Great transition for Gilly from music and Wallow from jail. Like, those guys are wildly entertaining, and they've had a great year. Now, lastly, we have Joe Budden podcast, which has gone through a ton of changes, especially in 2021. But Joe Budden has been a constant in this media presence. Like, as far as the digital hip hop media era, I think Joe Budden is like right up there at the absolute top. My man is freaking dominating it. He started the show over at Complex with Everyday Struggle, the podcast, the pull-ups, starting his own network. Joe has really done a fantastic job of kind of rebranding himself, but actually making a statement in hip hop and having a voice that matters. He's one of the only people that I feel made a real transition from that rapper status to media. Like, there is no more Joe Budden the rapper to me. Joe Budden is the media mogul, and I salute that brother for all he's done in the media space, and he continues to do no matter what. He's making all kind of adaptations. He's adapting to the climate. He's adapting to the change. To me, he's for the creators, and Joe has laid out a fine blueprint on how to get a bag in media. and how to persevere through it all. I'm still totally in love with the Joe Budden podcast, even though they've transitioned away into a new type of podcast. Great job to Joe with going with the flow. Salute to Joe Budden, Parks, Ice, Ish, Savon, and the rest of the crew. Now let's get into the YouTubers. DJ Akademiks is the king of YouTube.
Check it out now. Where do I start with this one? Okay,
period.
Now,
there is no other discussion about it. Love him or hate him, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. DJ Akademiks controls the hip-hop media on YouTube. Salute to DJ Akademiks for building a platform from nothing to something major. And he's also just threw his cap into the podcasting game as well. So I'm excited to see what Akademiks has to say. But Akademiks is the go-to media guy for millions of people. And that's not something to bat an eye at. DJ Akademiks has done a fantastic job, man. And he is a brilliant marketer, brilliant strategist, and he's a clever businessman. So I salute to DJ Akademiks and all the moves that he's made on YouTube. He's really laid out a fine blueprint for a lot of young people. Earlier I said that radio personalities were essentially done, and this Akademiks proves that. Akademiks was able to start a YouTube channel, create his own platform, and bring the people to him, and they travel with him on his multiple streams. From Twitch to Spotify to YouTube, it doesn't matter. The people follow Akademiks, and that shows me that radio would be incapable of creating somebody bigger and better than Akademiks because he did it organically and on his own. I love the story of DJ Akademiks. We have Complex, who creates a lot of dope content over there on their channel. They do a wide variety of things over there at Complex, and they've done a great job of kind of rebranding themselves from just a magazine. And like I said, they got B-Dot show over there, and they just got a lot of fun content over there at Complex. The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is the big YouTube channel, and ever since they've been putting their interviews full time on YouTube, like Breakfast Club is taking off. They have the most amount of viral internet moments, period.
Put some respect on my name.
Drake! And again, what DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne Tha have been able to do is absolutely phenomenal, and I love watching the transition that each of them have made to this new media platform. We still have Angie Martinez, Sway, Big Boy, Funk, Master Flex. All of them have transitioned their way into a smooth media network on YouTube. I love the interviews that Angie does. She has nice, long, sit-down, one-on-one interview conversations, and they get deep, they get dope, and they're so insightful. Angie Martinez might be one of the best interviewers of our generation across all platforms. Sway used to have his rap, the 5 Fingers of Death rap over there on Sway. He does great interviews. Funk Flex freestyles go viral, they go crazy. When people go to Funk Flex, they know they have to bring the heat when they coming over there to freestyle. And he's had a lot of legendary freestyles. Speaking of freestyles, gotta talk about what the LA Leakers are doing over there on YouTube as well. LA Leakers are killing it with the freestyles. No interviews, no necessary. You come to LA Leakers, you drop a fire freestyle, that bad boy getting millions of views, and that is tremendous platform. Then you have Genius. I'm a real big fan of Genius because they break down a lot of good content, music videos, lyrics, etc. Genius has a great YouTube platform as well. Ebro in the Morning, they have great interviews and great moments over there on Hot 97. Revolt TV, almost everything that happens in black entertainment. Black News with Ebony K. Williams. Even the Breakfast Club is shot and shown over on Revolt TV. Like, Revolt is it for me. Like, Revolt has a very dope black platform, and I would love to take Culture Breakdown over to Revolt, by the way. If I don't get the title, I'm coming to Revolt. And then I obviously have to mention myself on this YouTube platform. Look at me. I'm throwing myself in the game, baby. I'm here. I am here, and I'm building a platform because I'm trying to come and get it. And hey, Revolt, holla at me. Title, holla at me. Any of you guys, holla at me, man. I'm willing to work. Now we can get over to the bloggers / social media platforms. We can talk about some of these people. I'm gonna start with the top of the list, the king of the kick, the repost master, again, Elliott Wilson. Like, Elliott Wilson, if you haven't taken anything else from this video, Elliott Wilson is clearly the all-star of hip-hop media. He's in 3 or 4 different genres. He is king and kingmaker in a lot of these different categories, man. Elliott is the man, bro. But if you're on social media, Instagram especially, and you need any kind of hip-hop news, here are some of the channels, or here are some of the platforms you gotta follow. Hip Hop DX, Too Cool to Blog, Say Cheese, Hot New Hip Hop, Shade Room, World Star, It's Ricky P, and Her TV. Like, all of those Instagram accounts keep me up to date on what's going on in hip hop almost every single moment of the day. And if you don't get it from any of them, you can just follow Elliott and he got you covered. Like, seriously. Also, DJ Akademiks on Instagram is a nice follow too. Akademiks just covers so many different versions of hip hop. So these are the new people to watch. You got obviously Rory and Mal, Mano's podcast. Nyla has a podcast with Mouse Jones. I love Mouse Jones. He's a top tier talent. Wayno's podcast. All of these people, young, fresh, hungry. They're all on the multimedia platform surface. And that's what I was saying earlier about radio. These people aren't trying to make their way into the industry through radio or through TV. They are starting here on YouTube, in podcasting, on Instagram. They're creating a platform, blowing up, and then after that, the networks have to come to them. And that's the new way of things. There is no more traditional media. This is the traditional media. I don't want to hear no more non-traditional talk, man. What we are doing here on these different social media platforms is it. This is how people get their information. And I have to obviously talk about the 3 hottest streaming platforms that's doing amazing miracles for the hip hop industry with streaming numbers, records being broke. We got Tidal first, again, Elliott Wilson over there curating all the playlists. We got Spotify, and then Spotify is doing a great job with the music and bringing in a lot of dope creators for podcasting, and then Apple Music. And obviously I did not forget, how could I possibly forget, the biggest thing in hip hop today, which is Versus. I did not forget about Versus, saving the best for last. Versus has become the new phenomenon, man. It started, like, we want to say it started in a basement type deal, you know what I'm saying? It started in the house. People just grooving in the house and providing some type of entertainment during the pandemic. Now we're back outside and Versus is still striving like ever. And I love it. Versus TV, online platform, YouTube channel, Triller deal, everything that Versus TV doing is legendary, and it's on a major grand scale. What I was talking about, all of us other creators are trying to do. So salute to Versus. Obviously I pay my respect to them every single time a Versus is announced. I'm there, I'm watching, I'm creating videos and content around that. Salute to Swiss and Timberland for everything that they've done with Versus. Versus is huge, and I don't think it's going anywhere. Here's my final thoughts. The media era is just absolutely incredible. And maybe it's some recency bias because I'm living in it currently right now, but I love it. Obviously, I love all the talent that's popping up, like I just said. I love all the platforms that are being created. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to make waves and make a name for myself and create a platform that's bigger and more important than me. So I'm excited and I'm super thrilled to be able to even add my 2 cents to the conversation, and great, amazing people like yourself watch the content, especially for this long. I love it. I love this hip hop stuff, man, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Anyway, I'm here for bigger and better things. I'm gonna continue to bring positive vibes, positive content, and do everything I can to push forward and uplift our culture and the black creators that are in it. The moral of the story is the history of hip hop media is deep, is rich, and is full of amazing, amazing talent, but it's still room for unique and creative individuals like you. Now that's it, guys, man. I've had a blast making this video. I want to thank you guys for watching this week's episode of Culture Breakdown. And Like always, man, until next week, I'm out.